Have you ever been at the dinner table talking with your family when a controversial issue comes up? Well, most times not everyone agrees on what the wrong or right option is. Your parents may take one side while you take the other, and this is mainly because of the generation gap. I know many times I've disagreed with my parents, and it's very apparent why our views are so different. Many people think that your beliefs depend on how you've been raised, the way your parents think. But I am here to try to get you to understand why I believe your beliefs depend on the generation. For the opposing side, I would say that of course you have influence from your parents. You've grown up with them your whole life. But for the most part, when you go to school, work, or anything else, you're surrounded by people of your generation, so those influences are stronger than when you're raised by your parents. Generations have many stereotypes. According to Gen Q, millennials are the generation that get the most attention. Everyone has a stance on what's wrong and right, but not everyone agrees on one. When generations change, you see many things change. So if music, fashion, fads, trends, and all that stuff can change, then why wouldn't your beliefs change with them? I'm not saying everyone in these generations have the same beliefs on these topics, but from what I've seen, it is the general view of these generations. So today I would like to tell you why I feel that your belief on what is right and wrong is based on the generation gap. The first example of something that is a generational belief is the object of technology. In older generations, they prefer a pen and paper. They usually don't like the idea of technology and think it's taking over our world. In the millennial generation, we're more prone to technology. We prefer to keep track of things through our phones or our tablets. Technology is one of the most talked about things in today's society. Older people usually hate it and don't understand it. More and more you see cell phones being used and you see things becoming electronic. In schools, textbooks, homework, communication, all that stuff is being used through an electronic. Everything is becoming electronic. In my opinion, this is the biggest difference in belief. Generations are constantly debating whether it's right for technology to be used at such a high dose, and neither generation is going to conform because they do have different beliefs. Older generations were not raised on technology, they aren't as influenced by it. But in the millennial generation, we've been raised on it and we're used to it, so we know that technology is coming and evolving. According to Susana Fernandez, results showed that Gen Y was more engaged at work than Gen X. This shows that they have a different approach because of the time they were raised, because work is more technology infused now. And according to Generation Model's website, generational differences are one of the main reasons why companies struggle to hire. This may be one of the bigger examples of the generation gap, but this is not the only case in which generations disagree on a topic. Another topic that generations disagree on is the more open-minded issues we see in society. Whether it be gay marriage, immigration laws, or transgender rights, it seems like the millennial generations are much more open-minded. To me, it seems like the older generations doesn't understand some of these issues and gets confused with them. They may not be opposed to these topics, but they don't have quite the deep understanding that the millennial generation seem to have. This is one topic in particular that my parents don't understand as much. When something gets brought up about these, there's a disagreement instantly because of the lack of understanding. Because the extent of this issue is so deep, it's hard to decide who's right and wrong. The issue is one where I clearly see how a generation thinks. Older ones may not be okay with these topics, but the younger ones may see how these are becoming okay. According to Catherine Cloutier, 3/4 of the millennial generation supports gay marriage, but less than half of the baby boomer generation supports it. And according to Millennial Magazine, with the rise of technology also comes the rise of transgender rights. This is just another topic on the long list of things generations don't agree on. There are many differences between the generations. As I mentioned earlier, technology is one of the biggest ones. That's one of the biggest barriers between generations. Older generations are more traditional by the book people. They will work to earn money and save, they value community and people around them, and they were educated in a classroom that had a handful of people. Most of them didn't finish out school because they had to leave and provide for their family. They were raised on thinking that this was the right idea of how to live. But in the millennial generation, things were much different. Millennials were raised more on an individualistic perspective, so to think for themselves. Throughout school, they were taught to follow their dreams and to focus on what's best for them. Speaking of school, it's a much different situation. Millennials are raised in a much bigger classroom community, opposed to how the older generations were taught, and they were able to graduate and think of careers for themselves. Though the two situations are incredibly different and the two generations may disagree on which way is better, they both think their way is the right way, and it's just a difference of when they grew up. Hopefully giving you these examples will prove to you why your beliefs on what is right and wrong do truly depend on when you were born. Today, I hope I was able to help you understand why I believe that the things you believe in are based on your generation. So next time when you're having a disagreement with someone of a different generation, just remember that just because you have opposing views, it doesn't mean one of you has to be right or wrong. It just means that you believe your stance is right or wrong.